wait till Assembly Person Paunoff gets up here. Yes, right. I'm going to go ahead and call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. This is a regular meeting for Tuesday, February 4th, 2025. Madam Clerk, will you please take the roll?
I will. Tim Haley, are you on the phone?
Here.
Stephanie Nowers, are you on the phone? Okay. Dee McKee.
Yep.
Maxwell Sumner.
Here.
Bill Gamble.
Here.
Dimitri Fonoff.
Here.
Ron Bernier.
Present.
Madam Mayor, you do have a quorum.
Thank you. Is there anything that any members would like to pull from the consent agenda?
I would.
Uh-huh.
And just to chat briefly about them, that is RS 25012 and RS 25013.
Okay. Is there anything anyone else would like to pull? Okay. Okay, hearing none, then the agenda has been approved as presented. Will you all stand, please? Tom, would you lead? Tom?
Yes, ma'am.
Would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Be happy to.
Thank you.
It's an honor and privilege to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. There are no minutes to be presented. We are now to reports and correspondent agency reports. I don't see anybody from any of the cities out there. Do we have a report from the school district? I'm looking at you. No, okay. Yeah, we do have a report probably from the state of Alaska, huh, sir?
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the Assembly, staff, and constituents. Todd Smolden with the Governor's Office. First wanted to report that I stopped by the Borough Building today and paid my second installment of my property taxes.
Good.
And I was starting to wonder when that senior exemption kicks in. Is that 65 or 65? I have a few more years left, I guess. Wow. Education's a hot topic in the governor's office. The governor introduced his omnibus legislation and had a press conference on Friday. There, I guess, is maybe a different approach from the governor than other legislation that's been filed so far. HB 69 that was filed was a pure BSA increase, which, according to Ledge Finance, would result in about $1.2 billion in additional education expenditures over 3 years. So the first year is about 300 million, and then the next year would be close to 600, and then the year after that would be around 700, based on the fact that it's a permanent change to the formula. So there's actually quite a bit of difference in terms of what the governor is looking for spending and what the HB 69 is. Also, the governor's legislation ties funding to specific outcome goals. One of them is related to literacy. Another is career and technical education. The governor also wants to increase the multiplier for homeschool correspondence students. Also, additional authorizers for charter schools and transportation dollars. So there's quite a number of different pieces in the governor's legislation, and if anybody has any questions about them, they can contact me, and I'd be happy to go over those with them. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me tonight about any of this education-related things. I'm happy to take them. Also, I know there's been talk about the U.S. Department of Education and President Trump's executive order, what that would mean for the state. So I also could provide information about that. From our perspective on the U.S. Department of Education, I think what that looks like would be a lot of federal funds that currently come with a lot of requirements, guidelines, and strings attached. What I believe President Trump's plans are, or what he's indicated, is that a lot of those monies would come to the state with fewer strings attached, giving states the opportunity to use those for their own kind of priorities and what their state goals are for education. So there are some potential benefits with those changes, but we're still, I think we're about 50 days away from any significant information on what the U.S. Department of Education plans are and federal funding through the U.S. Department of Education. So I know that's maybe a lot of information. I have been swimming in education information for the last few weeks and also constituent emails. One thing I have noticed is that constituents reaching out to the governor's office are doing that with a little bit of a different tone this year. Last year there was a lot more people really were focused on the funding aspect. There are a lot more people that reaching out this year that really see a need for both funding and reforms. And I think the latest NAEP scores, national testing scores, also promoted, at least the emails that I was getting this week from constituent relations, really promoting this idea of what are we getting for the dollars that we're spending. When you look at some other states like Florida and Mississippi, who used to do really poorly in the national assessments, they're doing much, much better now with a far less money spent. And that's because they instituted reforms. And so back to my original point, I guess, and I'll wrap it up, is the governor's education legislation is not just, it wasn't just created out of thin air with, the governor of, gee, this sounds good, let's try it. The governor has over 30 years experience in public education. Commissioner Bishop has over 30 years experience in public education, both of them in rural and urban Alaska. I also work on education policy for the governor. I have 24 years of education experience in public education. So what I have been tasked with is also looking at what other states have done. And I've done a lot of research on that. Florida, Mississippi, Louisiana, Arizona. There are examples all over the country of reforms that have netted really positive results. So the governor's legislation is based on his personal experience, the experience of people who he has talked to, other programs and reforms that other states have tried with success. And so it's a product of a lot of different things and not just, gee, let's try something and see how it works. And we're really hoping that the legislature will have a more holistic conversation about both funding and reforms this year, because the reforms that the governor has proposed are also very popular among Alaskans. And I could go on, but you probably have a long night ahead of you, so I won't. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them if you have them. Thanks.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, Assemblyperson Fauna, go ahead.
Quick question. This is not to that related, but it is related. Has the governor had any talks or maybe reached out to our two senators to raise Alaska to not stop, but instead help and support the confirm the Trump's nominations for the cabinet picks, so that we, could get all the people confirmed, and there wouldn't be a delay. And do you have any kind of little bit of information on that side of things?
I know that the governor has conversations with the members of the federal delegation on a number of different issues, specifically to the senators and confirmation votes. I'm not sure if he's had conversations with them. I think the governor's been very public in his support of President Trump and President Trump's picks for cabinet. So I don't think he would have to tell them that he wants them to vote for President Trump's cabinet picks. I think they should be able to know that. And I think he also respects their position, and that's a decision that they make based on their constituents and how they feel like they are serving their constituents. So the governor likes to, he respects people in their authority and their ability to represent the people who have voted for them. And so I don't think he's probably put a lot of pressure, so to speak, on any particular senator to vote a certain way. Through the mayor, sorry.
Go ahead, follow up.
Yeah, not to create pressure, but I personally reached out to both senators in the past, and it was always the voicemail. So obviously, average constituent is not, I wouldn't, from my understanding, is not really never had a respond or anything like that. But obviously the governor probably has the most amount of voice for a state, and that's me as personally, I can say I would, I know that the governor's reflecting voice of the constituents would probably mean a lot, and that's just my personal take on what I've experienced so far by trying to reach their offices. So
I've heard that Senator Murkowski's phone lines are pretty busy.
Assemblyperson McKee.
Yeah, I just like the words outcome-based education used to say, oh my gosh, don't say those words. It's like using the F word. I am hearing it now in a really positive way. And it's like a big ship government is. You start turning back here and 4 years later, it finally gets to moving. We're really going to do it this time? I mean, is there going to be some objective correlation between outcome and funding? I mean, that we can look at and say, yeah, okay, you got there, we'll give you this. You didn't get there, we won't give you this.
Through the mayor to Assemblymember McKee, we already are doing some outcome-based education through the READS Act. And,
Yes, absolutely.
So the READS Act that was passed a couple years ago and implemented last year netted some really positive results. Imagine that. You focus on reading, you assist teachers with science-based curriculum, you give them training, you make it a priority, and guess what happens? It's incredible. Young people learn how to read. So yes, we already do that in the governor's legislation. There are a couple of pieces, again, with reading. These are incentive grants where school districts could get money based on the number of students who read proficiently. So it's a way to incentivize a school district in trying to increase the number of students in their district that read proficiently. These incentive grants are not new. There are other states that have tried them successfully for many years. I believe Florida, the state of Florida, gives high schools or school district, I think it's school districts, $1,500 for every student that scores a 3 or above on AP tests. So that's an example of a cash incentive that promotes high expectations and the encouragement of high school students to take AP tests, but not just take AP tests, but to actually score a 3 or above, which gives them college credit in most colleges. So these cash incentives or cash granting for outcomes is not new. It would just be new to Alaska. That's one example. Also, additional money through the multiplier for career and technical education and the number of students who are enrolled in career and technical education classes. That's another piece in the governor's education reform legislation.
Well, hallelujah. Like I said, I may go back to teaching because it looks like there's a light shining on it right now, and that's good news. Thanks.
And Deputy Mayor, go ahead.
Can you, a couple of highlights of the governor's homeschooling changes? Just to,
So the proposal is to make a homeschool correspondence student equivalent in funding, in base funding, and then also run those numbers through the multiplier a couple of steps, which would allow more money to districts that have homeschool correspondence programs, because we know that homeschool correspondence students, many are kind of disciplined, and parents take care of pretty much everything. But there are also homeschool correspondence students who need services, special ed services, other services, or they want to take, let's say, a career and technical education class at one of the high schools. When they do that, that's an additional burden on the school district, and they're not receiving the money for that service because it's not run through the multiplier, if that makes sense. So that's the governor's proposal, is to run those students through the multiplier, homeschool correspondence students, so that there is additional money for school districts like the Mat-Su that has a really robust homeschool correspondence program, so that they're not having to pay for services that they're not getting money for from the state through the mayor.
Any further questions? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, next we have a report from the Mat-Su Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Manager Brown, and the Assembly. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk to you a little bit about tourism in the Valley. I'm going to give you some economic input or economic data for the calendar year of 2024, and then kind of an update of what we're doing as an organization to promote the Mat-Su Borough. I'll have a copy of this for you, but it turns out if you wait till an hour before the meeting, that's when you find out that the copier's out of ink in your office. So look for that in your mailboxes coming up. But over in the last fiscal year, the Mat-Su Borough took in $2.3 million in bed tax, which is 30% higher than previous records. So that's a great stat. And just in the short-term rentals, that generated $25.6 million here in the borough. So that's money that's coming in from out of state, that's circulating around in our community. And the average visitor to the borough, I should say this is outside of the borough boundary, so it would have some spending from Anchorage and Fairbanks residents as well. But the average visitor spent $318 while they were here in the borough. And that's about 21% of all spending was generated by the visitors here. So it shows that the visitor industry is important to our local economy. 22% of all restaurant spending was from visitors that came. I don't think maybe restaurant owners understand quite the importance that visitors have to them when nearly a fifth of their revenue is coming from outside of the borough. And then this is at the state level, but for every $1 that was invested in destination marketing, it returned $378. So it kind of shows that it's a good return on investment to invest, and we definitely appreciate your support in that as well. Moving on to a project that makes me very happy is the Gateway Visitor Center project. We first started talking about the need for a new visitor center at my first board retreat, which was 18 years ago, which is hard to believe. And to see it actually happening now, I can't tell you how excited we are as an organization to see this come to fruition. And Mike can tell you, there's been so many ups and downs to this, but it's getting across the finish line, and we're really excited for this summer to drive by the Glen Highway and see it going up. It's been a pleasure to work with Rod Crew and his team here. It's been very collaborative, and I appreciate the openness and allowing us to have some input as well on this borough project. It'll be a welcoming center for visitors, and it's where we can accelerate that economic impact, where we can tell them why they should add another day to their Mat-Su destination, whether that's in Wasilla, Palmer, Talkeetna, Glacier View. It's important for us that this facility represents the entire borough, not just one central community. But other than that, I also think that it's important to see it as a community resource. Where have a classroom and offer interpretive events there. We can have educational seminars. And so I think not just as a visitor center, but it's also important as a community resource. And that's really what we kind of want to see our role as an organization kind of evolve into, as being a valued resource for our residents as well as our visitors. And I'll just give you a brief update on what we're doing. This is controlled chaos time. The beginning part of the year is always the busiest in terms of destination marketing. So right now, Justin Saunders, our marketing manager, is in Philadelphia at the American Bus Association convention, where he has over 30 appointments with tour operators. Those are operators that bring, groups of 40 to 50 people to Alaska. And so he's highlighting different Matsu options to include in their itinerary. He gets to have a day off next Friday, but then it's right into the Amazing Alaska Experience, which is a new convention based in Anchorage. The state is bringing up 30 top producing travel advisors from around the state, or from around the country, I should say. So these are like travel agents or, advisors that you can book packages with. He has 15-minute multimedia presentations with each one of them. And then we'll also be hosting a group of them out here in the valley so they can actually experience the product themselves. Then he gets a day off. And then it's at the LA Travel and Adventure Show, which has 30,000 attendees. And these are people that are actively looking for places to travel. And we'll be there passing out Matsu information, our visitor guide, and our member brochures. He gets a whole week off. Big week for him. And then it's to Seattle for the Holland America Alaska Showcase, which is cruisers who are coming to Alaska who are adding a land package. So we know that they're going to be coming to the Matsu Borough. A lot of times it's on a princess itinerary, but a lot of times it's also independent travelers that leave the boat and then add that package. So it's important to hit them. And then 2 weeks following that starts our in-state marketing, and that's at the Matsu Outdoor Show, the Fairbanks Outdoor Show, and then the Anchorage Outdoor Show. So basically over the course of the next 12 weeks, we have 8 different marketing programs in about 7 different cities. And it hits every single one of the demographics that we like to hit: with cruisers, independent travelers, group tours, and then local Alaskans. So it's a way for us to kind of spread our marketing dollars the most effectively across the people that are going to be coming here and spending the most. We also just received our 2025 visitor guide. We printed 75,000 copies of that, and I'll make sure that you all receive a copy. That's a great, people still pick up visitor guides. Research shows that. It's a question we always get asked. And in conjunction with that, we have ads running in AARP magazine on the West Coast and Outside magazine. And last year, those 2 ads alone generated 4,000 requests for visitor guides. So people are still requesting them. And then lastly, we're wrapping up the branding project that I would talk to you about earlier this year. So we're in the strategy phase for that. And then we'll, in about a month and a half, we'll enter the creative phase. And so hopefully the next time I'll have a different logo on here, and I can tell you guys all about the new destination brand that we've been working on. So thank you again for your support for destination marketing and for the Gateway. We greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Okay, thank you
Thank
for
you.
all the good news. Alrighty, the next, we have had a committee on school and assembly issues. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, so I'll give that report unless Assembly Members Sumner or McKee want to chime in about our joint committee meeting, on Monday. So I'll update that quickly. Really had 3 major agenda items. The superintendent provided an update, talked about the recent NAEP results, talked about our district's progress on the READS Act and what they're seeing occur with implementation of that, as well as how things are going with their reading and math curriculum and some of the recent results in that. So all of those things, generally speaking, at least those last 2 were pretty favorable. And so, yes, we hear that narrative around Alaska as a whole. But the superintendent's statement was along the lines of that may be true for the state as a whole, but our district is having a different experience. So I think it's always interesting when we read those articles and hear those released, is really to drill down in the data, look at what we have within the district and what we're seeing our district do and what we're seeing in terms of progress there. So Hopefully, Mr. Bergia didn't mess that up too bad. He was in the meeting and he's a school board member. But we did talk about some of those student outcomes and some of the progress we're seeing within the Matsu. The superintendent also briefly discussed what he has rolled out with regards to some of the changes proposed for Matsu Central School that the school board will be considering in the coming months. So I think there were some recent articles written about that. So he provided some context for what they're hoping to do there and what the board will be considering. And then lastly, we talked about education funding at the local level. And so we talked about what will likely be in the manager's proposed budget for assembly consideration coming up in April. Those numbers I will include in tomorrow's weekly post so that you don't have to scribble them down quickly. I'll have that all written up for you tomorrow so that you'll have that for reference in terms of what we intend to put into the budget for your consideration here in the next couple months. That is all I have, Madam Mayor, unless there are any questions.
Assemblyperson Sumner or McKee, do you have anything to add? No? Okay. All right. Thank you very much. The next, or I'm sorry, was any of the assembly have a question for the manager? No? Okay. The next item is public relations. Anybody have anything for public relations that they would like to present, discuss? Okay. I have two items. On Monday, Mayor Machicki reached out to me, his concern for his borough regarding House Bill 80. And I did take and ask the clerk to send that out to you. It is a bill that was introduced on January 31st by the House Labor and Commerce Committee, and it only has one referral to the House Labor and Commerce Committee. We do not in the Valley have anyone that serves on the House Labor and Commerce Committee, but there were a couple people from Anchorage that I knew, and so I reached out to them. There was a public hearing that was scheduled, but that has been canceled. So Representative Nelson said that he thought on Thursday of this week they would decide if they were going to hear that bill next week. As far as I could see, there was not a companion bill in the Senate, but on the Senate side, we do have Senator Yount that does serve on the Senate Labor and Commerce, and I made him aware of that bill. So it's, I think, and again, it wasn't anything that was on our radar, so it's not included in our legislative priorities. Maybe after some of the council or assembly has had a chance to review it, you may want to present something later for us to take a stand on it or not. So I'll leave that up to the rest of you. Also, in one of the items that I asked the clerk to pass out to you was some input from a resident in RSA 21 in the Big Lake area. Not only did she send us an email, but she also had taped the meeting, and so you have a copy of that, and she made some recommendations in there regarding things that she thought that should be done. So I'm called your attention to both of those items, and then we'll go from there. Mr. Brown, for your manager's report.
Yeah, I'd like to invite Ms. Heindel forward to introduce the audit presentation.
Good evening, Assembly Mayor. I'd like to introduce Steve Wadlaw. He is our, and I mispronounced his name, I'm sure. He is with Altman & Rogers, our current CPA firm. They've been our CPA for the last 2 years, and he's ready to give you a report on our audit as of June 30, 2024.
Hey, Cheyenne, the clicker is right there if you want to show it to him.
Just a clarification on the name. It's Steve Wadley. Most people misspell and mispronounce my last name, so I'm used to it. Good evening, everyone. Honorable Mayor, members of the Assembly. It's a pleasure to go over the results of the audit with you today. I take it everybody has a handout. I got to figure out how to move this forward.
The button that's mostly worn off is the
Oh.
forward button. And you just pointed at Lonnie here at the dais. Oh,
Here,
this
right
way.
here.
Me, I'm on.
Oh, okay.
Sorry, you don't know who I am.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to look at the bottom of this page. That's kind of hard to see on the screen there, but is our opinion over the financial statements. And specifically, it says, in our opinion, the accompanying financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of governmental activities, the business type activities, the discretely presented component unit, each major fund, and the aggregate remaining fund information of Matsu Borough as of June 30th, 2024, and the respective changes in financial position and where applicable cash flows thereof for the year then ended in accordance with accounting principles generally accepted in the United States of America. So this is a clean opinion. And as part of our audit procedures, we asked for a trial balance from management, and we gather up supporting documentation related to the numbers that are in the trial balance. We perform audit procedures over there to make sure, because our opinion says that things are materially correct. So we're making sure that we agree with the information. And that ultimately the trial balance is used to produce these financial statements. So we're making sure that the financial statements are materially correct. One of the things that we're required to do, because you guys have both a federal and state single audit, is to test internal controls. So when we test internal controls, we're looking at the policies and procedures as passed by you guys. And making sure that they're following all the rules and regulations, information, especially when we get into compliance. A lot of that is when you have capital projects going on. We're looking at procurement documents, making sure that, managers and the finance staff are following all the rules and regulations. So for our samples this year, we looked at accounts payable transactions or cash disbursements. We looked at cash receipts, payroll transactions, and some billing samples. And then each and every year we set materiality, and materiality is based on the hire of assets or revenues. And so that fluctuates from year to year. So we reviewed all material checks and material journal entries. For the general fund, anything greater than $2.5 million. For the school capital project fund, it was $240,000. For the RSA capital project fund, it was $380,000. For the port, since there's not a whole lot of activity, that one has a pretty low materiality of $10,000. And then the solid waste, we looked at $110,000. And then all your other funds, we looked at anything greater than or equal to $250,000. So when we tested these internal controls. And then finally, to get comfortable with the opinion over the financial statements, we do some analytical procedures, compare prior year to current year, also current year to budget, just to make sure that things look correct to us. And the results of our testing are the second to the last paragraph on this slide. And it says, our consideration of internal control was for limited purposes described in the first paragraph of this section and was not designed to identify all deficiencies in internal controls that might be material weaknesses or significant deficiencies. Given these limitations during our audit, we did not identify any deficiencies in internal controls that we considered to be material weaknesses. However, material weaknesses or significant deficiencies may exist that were not identified. So that's negatively phrased because we only pulled a sample of your transactions, so we can only report on the sample. We did not look at the entire population. Moving on to the next slide. This covers your federal compliance, and for compliance purposes, I'm going to move to the next slide here. We looked at 4 individual programs for compliance. We looked at the Economic Adjustment Assistance Program, the Coronavirus Recovery Funds, the Local Assistance Funds, and Homeland Security Grant. So both the Fed and the state kind of operate the same now. So picking programs is a risk-based analysis. So as we look at some of the bigger programs, if there's no findings or no issues, we focus on another one the next year. So it's kind of a cycle. In like 3 years, we'll look at the majority of your guys' programs. Our results are in the second paragraph here that basically says, in our opinion, Mat-Su Borough compiled in all material respects with the type of compliance requirements referred to above that could have a direct and material effect on each of its major federal programs for the year ended June 30th, 2024. So on the federal as well as the state programs that I'll get to here in a little bit is we pull additional samples separate from the samples that we'd go over for financial reporting. And then both the Fed and state have the same materiality. So we're required to look at all material transactions at 5% of program expenditures. So anything at 5% or higher, we're required to look at, and then we do additional samples related to cash disbursements and payroll transactions in these specific to the 4 programs. So again, that's a clean opinion. Basically, we found that management was following all the rules and regulations of those 4 programs, and I'm happy to report no findings or issues related to those programs that we reviewed.
Okay.
This next slide is the state of Alaska. I'm going to focus on the next slide here. Again, this is our opinion. I'm not going to read it to you, but it is an unmodified opinion. The state of Alaska basically follows the federal guidelines. So the wording of these 2 letters are very similar. You did get a clean opinion over state compliance, and we reviewed 2 programs. And the 2 programs were the 2 debt service funds through the state of Alaska that we looked at. And we performed audit work over there. Again, it has the same materiality as the federal, 5% of the program expenses, and we pull additional samples related to those individual programs. Next thing in the slide here is at the end of each audit, we asked management, this is called our management representation letter, and it basically outlines management's responsibility for the financial statements, as well as making sure that they disclosed everything that had audit significance to us. So once the financial statements get approved by managers, then we send out a rep letter, and at that time we finalize the report. And so that was signed by Cheyenne here. And then finally, this is the letter. If anything that you guys want to focus on, you probably want to focus on this letter. This is the letter to the governing board, and it basically outlines our required communication with the board. So it's kind of a summary of the financial statements. It goes through significant estimates. It would disclose whether we had any disagreements with management. And it's all there. It's pretty much standard wording because we had a clean opinion. Basically, any adjustments that we suggested were posted. We had no disagreements with management. Some of the significant estimates in every audit, there's estimates that are done. It's not always an exact science. And so we list out the significant estimates in here, and some of them are the estimates of the collectability of accounts receivable is based on the history of collections. So management determines whether or not they need an allowance account for past due accounts. That is an estimate that we look at, perform audit procedures, and make sure that we agree with them. There's several other estimates here. I'll allow you guys to kind of look over, but they're pretty much similar to what was the significant estimates of the prior year. And, I'm happy to report that the audit went smooth. We had no difficulties with management. They were well prepared for the audit, and we were able to get everything done. And I think it's been 2 years now, and we have 2 weeks booked for final, and we've only used half of the second week. So it just shows that when things are well prepared, it allows us to be more efficient and go through the information a lot faster. So I'll open it up to questions.
Sure. Any questions from any of the assembly? Assemblyperson Pownall.
I think I might have asked you this last year, compared to just when statistically nationalized, when you do audits like this, to have such a clean report, percentage-wise, can you tell us if on average what statistically is and how good it is to have this kind of result coming in?
Well, one of the things that we do issue findings, and it's a lot of the findings are the results of our internal control testing, where we find out that management is not following all the rules and regulations. A big one we see lately is procurement. People not following the policies. Basically, it's usually a mayor or somebody else that is circumventing the internal controls. And so we have, reported several findings. It's all on the amount of checks and balances that you have in place. So here at the Mat-Su Borough, you guys got lots of checks and balances. You have different people doing different things. And so you have a lot of eyes on the transactions. And so that helps to have a clean opinion over the financial statements and no findings because, the people in the finance department are following all the rules and regulations. So it just depends really on the internal controls and the checks and balances that you have in place.
Okay.
Ready? That looks like it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep, for the good news again. Thanks to Cheyenne and her department for keeping us on the straight and narrow. Mr. Manager?
Yeah, one more update. I'm going to invite Jason Motika from Terra Energy to give an update. They provided some updates in the past and took a couple of folks out on tours. So we invited Jason in here tonight to give the assembly an update. So the floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. My name's Jason Motika with Terra Energy Center. I want to thank you for the opportunity for an update. Lifelong Alaskan, business owner, and like many of you, we see the pending gas shortage in Cook Inlet. And so this project, Terra Energy Center, I believe can be a solution that we can stand up in a short amount of time that can provide substantial economic opportunity for the Mat-Su Borough for decades to come. And so I'm looking forward to providing you the update. We have about 10-minute presentation here. And Chad Schleichner, who's the general manager of the project, he's going to run through the presentation. And so, Chad, are you on the phone?
I am. Can you hear me all right?
Yep. And Chad, I'm controlling the slides. So you just tell me next. So the floor is yours, Chad.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Jason. Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Assembly members. for the opportunity to provide this update for our project, the Terra Energy Center Biomass Decarbonized Coal-Fired Power Plant in the West Susitna. We are an Alaskan company delivering Alaskan energy to Alaskans. As Jason mentioned, I'm Chad Schleusner. I'm the general manager for Terra Energy Center, and I have led projects all across Alaska as well as internationally. And at Terra Energy Center, we have a strong team of advanced decarbonized biomass coal-fired power plant experts delivering this project in the West Susitna. This project has been identified by the EAEA as a clean energy project that could potentially provide power for the rail belt. The work completed to date shows that the biomass coal-fired power plant not only delivers cost-competitive firm power supply for the Mat-Su area, but is also the only in-state, long-term, secure energy supply that is not dependent on, one, international commodity markets, and two, price volatility and related risks. First, I will walk you through the slides that describe the energy reserve that's available to power the South Central Power Plant and the work completed to date on the site. Then I will provide an overview of the decarbonized power plant and the public and policy support associated with it. I will then summarize for you how we were able to work together and bring home a $400 million grant as well as move to Project FID in 2026. We have two asks on this matter. One, it's a letter of support from the Mat-Su Borough for application with the DOE for a $400 million grant opportunity. And two is consideration of how the Assembly might be able to assist advancing the project in energy supply discussions underway at the state level. So I'm going to start with the slides. And Jason, if you could go to slide 3.
Right.
Yeah, so the first item of importance is to talk about our fuel. Alaska is blessed with abundant coal, and our site is also blessed with abundant coal. To date, we have identified 521 million tons reserve resource coal verified to date. Half of that, or less than half of that, could power a 1 gigawatt power plant for over 30 years. Next slide, Jason. 4. The next slide really highlights the fact that we have a uniquely clean fuel supply. There's a lot on this slide, and I can let you digest that later, but the important thing to take away from this is that our fuel is incredibly clean. Slide 5.
Yep.
So, environmental. Without carbon capture, coal is cleaner than imported LNG. To some, this might be, a tough, to understand, but really what you have to go to is the root of coal-fired power plants in the United States go back to plants that were developed 50 years ago and that have a technology that was 70 years old. And so these plants are outdated, they're not modern, and they don't have the latest technology associated with them. Hundreds of coal-fired power plants outside the United States have been developed, and we are utilizing that technology and building a modern plant with low emissions. And when you compare that to LNG, we have 0 to near zero methane emissions, where LNG has significant methane emissions through the transport as well as the burning of the LNG. When you include carbon capture with our new build that's directly integrated into that new build, it's not a retrofit, in this new modern power plant, you will create a power plant that is cleaner than wind with natural gas peakers. Really, I think that's the highlight for that slide. So we can move on to, if we can go to slide 7, Jason.
Okay.
The message on this slide really is that we have enough fuel to power South Central for a very long time. And by doing so, we can save the gas for heating. We all know that this is a huge issue right now, and it's one of the top discussions in South Central. And we can be a real partner in solving that problem. Next slide. When you look at lowest capex for firm power options within the state, coal with carbon capture is the lowest option on the table by a significant margin. And it creates fuel diversity for the state. Next slide, 9.
Yep.
When looking at UAF study, they looked at fuel for the rail belt. And the study that UAF developed showed that coal is the lowest cost fuel. Not only is coal the lowest cost fuel, it is also in Alaska's control. It has the lowest supply risk, and it's price predictable. The next slide, slide 10. So really, once again, looking at the depleting gas supply for Cook Inlet, there's a lot of numbers floating around, but we have a high level of certainty that the approximate $4 per MMBTU is a very good number. And it's not subject to volatility or exploration risks associated with oil and gas. It's lower and it's predictable. Next slide. Jason, you could probably speak to this better than I. You wanna take this one?
So one of the reasons as an Alaskan, I think this project can be so transformative for Alaska is on top of the low firm power solution, right? And economies, a thriving economy is low firm power is essential to a thriving economy. But while the carbon capture can be used to be sequestered, the CO2 is a valuable commodity, right? All of Alaska's CO2 currently is imported from Canada, right? And so all the Alaska that's supplied for beverage manufacturing, hospitals, military and industrial welding uses is all brought in from Canada. Our plant can provide, with an offtake facility, all the CO2 that Alaska could need, and that would be in the Mat-Su borough, right? Additionally, we're in conversations with several data centers that want firm power and want the reliability of firm power, and the timeline in which we could stand this up is something that is very competitive right now in the global market, right? But this opportunity is something that we need to capitalize on, and our company, Terra Energy Center, has invested in a feasibility study that is going to highlight what the Mat-Su area can offer for a data center company moving into this area and using firm power that has a path towards carbon neutrality, right? Now, with that data center, the waste heat from that data center could be used for example, from the waste heat from the power plant or the data center could be used to go ahead and heat a greenhouse. For example, 100 acres of greenhouse that's using the waste heat from the power plant or a data center. And by injecting the CO2 coming off the power plant into the greenhouse, you get a 30% yield, better yield on your crops. And for example, 100 acres of greenhouses could offset almost 95% of Alaska's leafy green produce into the state, right? And so these are all ancillary opportunities that come downstream of the firm power generation, which is why I believe this project has a significant economic benefit for the Mat-Su borough for decades to come. Chad?
Yeah, thank you, Jason, very much. Slide 12. You good?
Yep.
So one of the biggest questions that come up is about carbon capture technology. Is it in use? And yes, it's in use. It's been in use for decades. Predominantly, carbon capture has been utilized for EOR, which is enhanced oil recovery. And this has been a very popular means for utilization of CO2. Storage is also becoming a very common use for CO2. And really, you know, when you look at it's a proven technology, it's been around for decades, and within the United States, as of 2023, there are over 5,000 miles of CO2 pipelines in the U.S., and we are a world leader in the pipelines as well as doing carbon capture. Next slide. Really, the highlights on this slide are there is tremendous amount of stakeholder and policy support in Alaska. In 2024, the DOE awarded a $9 million grant with a $2.2 million state matching fund to the UAF for the ArcSafe project, which identified pipeline routing and CO2 storage in Alaska. In addition, in 2023, there's a Dittman Public Research poll, and 65% of residents supported coal with carbon capture, and 65% opposed LNG imports. So there's growing is the knowledge around carbon capture and its opportunity for Alaska grow. The support grows as well. Next slide. Currently, there's a $400 million Department of Energy notice of funding that has been announced. We are looking to that opportunity. A concept paper is due on March 1st, 2025 for this, and the full application is due July 1st, 2025. We believe the state has an opportunity to win this grant and benefit all ratepayers for South Central, but we need to work together and put our best foot forward and really try to win this competitive grant. In closing, what we offer predictable, cost-competitive, in-state power with low emissions. It's secure, long-term, in-state fuel source. It's scalable, as you know, tying into what Jason explained. We provide fuel and energy for new opportunities such as data centers, and it is importantly diversification from gas. So, in closing, we're seeking a letter of support from the municipality for the grant, and just look for an opportunity to work with state legislature and help communicate our project. With that, I thank you for your consideration, and if you have any other questions that Jason and I can answer, we'd be happy to answer them.
Okay. Any assembly questions? Assemblyperson McKee?
I'd like to make a comment. Anybody who knows me knows that I have one foot in the environmental thing and one foot in the business thing, and I was stunned. First time when Rob introduced this thing, that he said it was clean. I'm thinking, clean coal? Yeah, right. And when you look at what's going on now and the improvements in technology, and my family goes back a long ways with this kind of coal kind of thing, coal and energy thing, I'm amazed. And you got my vote because I didn't think it was possible to do this. This was stunning to me. So that's.
If everybody would speak up a little bit or bring the mic closer, we're having some sound problems in the audience, please, with your testimony. Okay, all ready? Did you finish, Assemblyperson McKee? Okay. Anyone else? Yes, Assemblyperson Pownall.
Question, maybe to chat. If you go to slide 14 on the grant, my question is, how many of these, is it just one grant available to one potential winner, or is there several of them? And if there is only one, how many, I guess, eligible, or that you guys obviously know, that companies that would be pursuing it? Is there 1 to 50 ratio who are competing for this? And what are the, do you know how many people would be trying to compete for that federal grant?
No, that's a great question. I can answer it. So there is multiple topic areas within this grant, and the $400 million grant is associated with topic area 1. I can't say for certain how many other entities are pursuing that grant, but it is just one. It's a significant number, and there will be others that will be looking towards this opportunity. I can say we are in a great position because of the fact we are a new coal-fired power plant, and that we are not a retrofit. And so many of the projects in the past have been retrofits, all of them. And so we are in a very unique position. And also, to tack onto that, we know that the Department of Energy knows that we have a energy concern in South Central, and this is a solution. I think that's important for us, and it really gives us that benefit. So that gives you a little bit more color. I really can't, I couldn't give you a number, but it is going to be competitive.
Yes, follow
Okay,
up.
so two-part question. What as assembly we could do, you said letter of support, and is there specific things that need to be outlined that would help this move along and to have the best chance of potentially competing for this grant? And if that's the case, would whoever be on your team be able to bring those points to us if we choose as an assembly to support this letter, so that we could include a lot of these maybe details that we don't have time to discuss right now, but just would that something that you'd be willing to work with us so that if we do put a resolution or a letter of support, so that a lot of these fine details are outlined in there so that it gives the best chance to succeed?
Yeah, no, I welcome that and appreciate it. So you can address any of these questions to myself, and I would love to sit down and work through the details and really map out, how we can really put a strong application forward for the grant, as well as just the project in general, and really signaling support to the governor and the state legislature about this project where appropriate. And please, we would love to support that activity, and anything we can do to work together is in our best interest and would be fantastic.
And one of the next steps, from what I'm understanding, there needs to be a commitment from the somebody who's interested and wants to commit to buying the power. Is that important fact to also encourage possibly? I think the Anchorage produce, and we have MEA to encourage them to also to commit and have them also put a letter of support to give the strongest possible chance. Is that something that would be helpful or not?
It would be helpful. We are working with MEA. They're a fantastic partner. And we would, anything we could, if the assembly could support us in our conversations with them, that just makes this whole conversation stronger. So we do have a great relationship, but any additional support is always welcomed.
Thank you so much.
Further question? Yes, Deputy Mayor.
Maybe, maybe multiple resolution letters to state, to MEA, to Anchorage, to, specifically to those areas might be helpful.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, really, we touch the entire rail belt. So the nature of our power grid touches a number of communities and boroughs. And so, having that, big picture approach to Alaska would be incredibly beneficial.
Okay, Assemblyperson McKee.
Yeah, just one brief question. Numbers of jobs brought to the state, and where would those jobs, permanent jobs, where would they be located? Would they be in the Matsu borough? Would they be spread out through the state, or what?
Well, so it's a big, complex project, and it covers a lot of area, but predominantly the majority of the jobs would be in the Matsu borough. It is in the Matsu borough where most of our work takes place. You're talking in the nature of 2,000 to 3,000 jobs directly associated with the construction activities and delivering the project, and then that just springboards there to the ancillary projects. So really, we are in the Matsu, and that's where the majority of the work will take place.
Thank you.
Okay, further questions? Okay, I guess that's it then. Thank you, sir. Further, okay. Mr. Attorney, do you have a report for us?
No, I'll just add, in addition to the auditors, that the legal department is very happy that everyone follows all the rules on all the financial grants and everything we've obligated ourselves to, so that we don't have any problems. So congratulations on the audit, that's all.
Madam Clerk, report.
The clerk's report is in your red folder with the upcoming meetings scheduled through April and the quasi judicial report. And that is it, Madam Mayor.
Okay. The next item on our agenda is citizens and other correspondence. Is there any questions by any of the assembly or any things to know? There's no comments, then on the citizens and other correspondence, they are presented. We do not have any information memos. Ah, wow, okay. So now we're at audience participation, and we do have a sign-up sheet. Thank you. And so we'll go ahead and, after we call the names on the sign-up sheet, then we will still have opportunity for people that are here. DJ?
Good evening, Madam Mayor.
You can pull it down for you. There you go.
How's that? Better? Good evening, Madam Mayor, Assembly members. I would like to speak about OR 2517, which is the move to change the RSAs in District 7 from a 3 to a 5-member board. It's difficult enough for the RSAs up north to fulfill a board that only requires 3 people. To ask for 5 would make it even more difficult, which would change our quorum from 2 to 3. There's also 2 boards in District 7 that if this went through, these boards would no longer function. And that would be Gold Trail and Meadow Lakes. They only have 2 members at this time, which means they can achieve quorum. But if this gets changed, then those boards are effectively non-functional. It also would like to point out that if any board would like to have 5 members, or the residents think their RSA board needs 5 members, they can always come to the assembly and petition to have 5 members put as a requirement for their boards. That we have not shows that we really do not wish this to happen. There is only 2 boards with 5 members on them, Big Lake and Knik has 0 members on their 5-member board. So they are absolutely not functioning. And that is all I have to say. I'd really, really appreciate it if this would not go through. It's difficult enough for us to get 3 people. 5 would be darn near impossible. Thank you.
Thank you. Travis?
Hello.
Hi.
Hello, my name is Travis. I live in Palmer, and I'd like to talk about an idea for the dump because I didn't have a chance to speak to the person in charge of the landfill. I know that they're trying to, make it where they want people to properly dispose of batteries correctly. And I thought to myself, why not also just make it to where it'll be easy for fast food restaurants to dispose, or other restaurants to dispose of their cooking oil properly, and in doing so, you can also turn that the grease and the frying oil into biodiesel. All you need to do is that they're able to to have the infrastructure to convert the fry oil into biodiesel, and we just simply screen it out for all the microparticles, and then put in some enzymes and some other stuff to make it certified to be safe to run inside cars. Because with biodiesel, you can run it on in any vehicle except diesel, I believe. I don't know, because diesel and gas engines work with different principles. But anyway, I'm bringing that up because for a long time I've been pushing forward to have glass recycling to the recycling center, and it's going along the way. It's a process and the work. So this is another idea that I hope would also get other people considering to, having a good way to dispose of their oil, because normally people would just throw it in the trash can and not think twice about it. But with the oil, but if you turn it into fuel that you could get at a pump, it'll still be used for something. Thank you.
Thank you, Travis. Jackie?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Assembly. My name is Jackie Goforth. The Library Citizens Advisory Committee, I thank you so much for, but they have not met since October. And these are the two books that they are discussing. And yes, I have read them both. And what I want to read you now is the finding from Chief Justice Rehnquist in United States versus American Library Association, 539 U.S. 194 from 2003. To fulfill their traditional missions, public libraries must have broad discretion to decide what material to provide to their patrons. Although they seek to provide a wide array of information, their goal has never been to provide universal coverage. Instead, public libraries seek to provide materials that would be of the greatest benefit or interest to the community. To this end, libraries collect only those materials deemed to have requisite and appropriate quality. A librarian's responsibility is to separate out the gold from the garbage, not to preserve everything. It is the aim of the selector to give the public not everything it wants, but the best that it will read or use to advantage. A hypothetical collection of everything that has been produced is not only of dubious quality, but actually detrimental to the user. Now, I've read both these books, and this one in particular is about two 16-year-olds who go to a camp. It's called The Haters. It's the name of their band. It's a road trip. They're 16-year-olds. They go to a camp in the summer for jazz, and a 19-year-old is there whose parent is a billionaire. And the 19-year-old decides to go on a road trip with these two 16-year-olds, and they are told to leave their phones and are basically kidnapped. That's really what happens. So this 19-year-old takes them across the southern part of the country, and they end up at one place. Several different things happen to them. But at one place, they end up at a big house that only has one bathroom, and the Gatorade is spiked, by the way. And one of the 16-year-olds believes they have a problem with peanut butter, and it will kill them. So they end up trying to eat peanut butter, and it turns out that that wasn't true. But the other one ends up losing their virginity on the floor in front of the bathroom, and it is actually more like date rape. And everybody steps over them and watches and gives their opinion of the incident the next morning. Now, these are two boys. The 16-year-olds are boys, and the 19-year-old is a female. And for some reason, that seems to make it okay. But to put this in the young adult section, how would it be if that was a 19-year-old male who'd kidnapped two 16-year-old girls, and believe it or not, the parents are trying to find them the whole book? How is this entertaining? And even if it's in the adult section, how is that entertaining for an adult to read about pedophilia? These are 16-year-olds, and that's basically date rape, with everyone watching. I feel sorry for the LCAC that they have to read these things. I feel sorry that I had to. Thank you.
Thank you. Sean? Sean?
Okay. Madam Mayor, Assembly people, Borough staff, my name's Sean McBride, and I'm here to speak on OR 2517. I moved to the Caswell area in 2016. I've attended almost all the road board meetings since then. And I've noticed that it's very difficult to replace any of the road board members when they retire or move out of the area. And I feel that this ordinance would make it very difficult by moving the number of required members from 3 to 5. It'd be very difficult to staff a board with 5 members all the time, because that moves the quorum from 2 members to 3 members. And like I said, it would be very difficult to have a 3-member quorum present all the time. That would make the the boards miss some of their meetings and be unable to conduct business very often if somebody was sick or out of state on vacation. And like was previously stated, if an RSA wants to have a 5-member board, they can always petition this body to have that done for whatever reason. And so far, nobody other than Big Lake has felt the need to do that. But that option is available if somebody wants to do that. So I just think the small benefit that might be derived from this doesn't match up with the huge disadvantage that would come from it. So when this does come up for you to vote on it, I would please ask you to reject it. Thank you.
Thank you. Tom?
Thank you. I am Tom Robertson, and it's always an honor and privilege to come here and talk, because I hope I'm bringing answers and resolving any future problems now or in the future. I'm here to complement the borough and your government that you have to make it even better for not only now but in the future. And that's why I keep asking for an Employee of the Year award. Every time I talk to somebody from the borough or HR, they keep passing me off like, well, we already got an Employee of the Quarter and that's all we need. And besides, it would be those people who got the reward of the quarter to vote for a yearly award. That's not really true. And the other thing, human resource is not dealing with reality. They don't understand that the people in this building who work here is kind of like a bubble. The people outside of this borough that work for the borough outside here do not like this building or the people that work here. That might be shocking news to some of the people in HR, but they're not liked here at all. That's not fun to say that, but that's true. And we want to bridge that gap of communication. The leadership has to start at the top. That's why I want to raise the bar of employment high and keep it high. I don't want it down low in the grassroots because it's not going to come up. And I told you the examples like it when you don't have it. Last time I was here, I talked about the lifeguard jumping from the ceiling into the deep end, and then the police telling the ambulance crew down here in Palmer not to go in. This guy's threatening to shoot himself and shoot anybody else, and the ambulance crew goes in there, drives in anyways. And the danger, you can't have that kind of stuff. The one thing that I've been reluctant to talk about, and I guess I need to bring it up because human resource sure is going to bring it up. When the project for the Bogart Road was being done, the head engineer that I went to see over here at the other building, we used to call it the Kremlin building, the Department of Agriculture. Now it's called Public Works or something. Anyways, Special Works. The engineer over there propositioned me to have sex. I don't tell anybody. I've never told anybody else that except for the mayor that was here then, Larry DeVilbus. But I knew HR would not do anything about it. So I went to the Palmer Police Department and got a case for the police department first, because HR would have swept it under the rug and pretend like, no, it doesn't happen. We'll just keep it in-house. I made sure it didn't go in-house. I made sure it went out to the public. And these kind of things happen when you don't have safety guards, parameters to help keep everything under control. You want to do that in advance. That's what leadership's about. We're going to address these problems ahead of time. We're not going to wait till after they happen and try to resolve them then. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Linda?
Hello, my name is Linda Spone. I have been testifying at these meetings on behalf of the children and youth of the Mat-Su Borough. My concern is that they are being poisoned in our libraries by librarians who have a woke agenda. To prove my point, which I was reluctant to go public with because this isn't the Palmer Library, but at the Palmer Library, just months before it collapsed, I was in the library and had a couple books I was heading toward the checkout counter with. There was a lower table in front of the counter featuring a young adult book sitting up on its spine called Identical. There was a librarian standing next to the table with a name tag that said Beth. As I reached for the book, I said, Identical, that sounds interesting. To my utter surprise, she grabbed the book before I did and said, "Oh, you wouldn't be interested in this book. It's for young adults. It's about identical twin girls." Well, I was interested, but she said again, "You wouldn't be interested in this book. It's for young adults." She wasn't going to let me touch that book, but it was being featured for young adults. You could never convince me that children aren't being targeted in our institution with taxpayer funds. I have since learned a lot about that book. This needs to stop. On another issue, we the people have a constitutional right to voice our opinions at these assembly meetings. Mayor, you stated at the beginning of the audience participation that comments will be respectful, no booing, and G-rated, which is fine. I have no problem with rules. However, that said, that should also apply to those of you on the dais. At the last meeting, in the assembly member comments at the end, Assembly Member Nowers referred to my testimony as an uninformed conspiracy theorist. This isn't the first time I have heard her say this in reference to my testimony and others. Quite frankly, I could call Nowers a few choice names, but I won't go that low. Now, to clarify my opinion on health powers, it is my personal opinion health powers should never be merged or given away, even temporarily, especially if it involves vaccine mandates for monetary gain, even if it is for a good cause. Find another way to fund your good cause. That is my opinion, which I am entitled to say at this assembly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Linda. Moki?
Good evening, Mayor, Manager, Assembly.
You can pull
staff.
that up to you.
My name's
sir.
Smokey too.
Yeah, there you go.
I'd like to talk to you about the RSA road maintenance contracts. The borough elected to put them into a one-year contract with 2 one-year renewals. They're coming up for rebid right now, and I'd like to urge at least the Big Lake area not to allow that just to roll through and to rebid it. As you said last year on the dais, that it was going to happen one time and it won't happen again. I'd like you to stand true to your word and put it out for rebid. Big Lake is about $73,000 is the $73,000 is the average house income. We're a Title I community. A $2 million bonus on a contract is out of hand. We need to get a hold of it, figure out what do we need to do to put it into a line. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Smokey. Anyone else? Anybody that didn't sign up but would like to? Yes, sir. Come on.
Good evening, I'm Andrew Traxler. I met Mike Brown on February 13th of 2021. Okay? And he stood in my mill yard and shivered with George Hayes. And you should ask him about this. Okay? And that started our journey on fixing the timber process in the Matsu Borough. And so I came here tonight to say that it's done, and it was done perfectly. And so to recognize the Borough Assembly, the manager, especially Emerson Kruger and all the hard work that he's done. And so that's why I came here tonight. You know, and people don't always come back before the assembly and say it was done perfectly. Staff was perfect. That every assembly member was engaged in the process. We had unanimous vote. You have now a 10-year timber sale that is 1,000 acres. It is going to supply industry. It's a wonderful thing. Okay, so well done. On the 5-member board for RSA boards, it causes it so that 2 board members can work together on a project without being in violation of the Open Meetings Act. It causes more opinion to be on the board. Most of our RSAs are large mileage. If you break it up between a 5-member board with a primary, you have 25 miles each. That's realistic. I can drive 25 miles without taking too much of my time, and I actually serve the public in that way. If you only had a 3-member board or a 2-member board, there's no way you could cover the mileage, and there's no way you could deal with the phone calls either. I do get frequent phone calls as an RSA board member, and I couldn't know the roads well enough if I was on a 2-member board, and most of our RSAs are around 100 miles. They kind of divide them up equally. I strongly support the 5-member board. I know that you guys are experiencing dysfunctions with the RSA 21, or there's issues at times. The 5-member board is very important for an RSA board. If we can't fill them beyond 2 seats, we need to figure out why. It may be that these smaller boards can't work together. You can't go out with another board member and look at something and plan a public work, a public construction type project. But anyways, I didn't know about the 5-member board being an issue on the agenda, but if it is, I strongly suggest that all boards are able to be 5-member. I don't see where it would block you from having a 2-member board quorum if member doesn't exist, but that would be up to a clerk to explain that to you. I'm not sure that I'm positive on that, but my main reason for being here tonight was say, well done on the timber, and it's done. You don't have to fix anything else. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like to give input, testimony? Yes, Mark?
Good evening, Mayor and Assembly. Thank you for that presentation on the coal. I mean, what resources more abundant in this state that's very lightly used? I lived in Fairbanks. There's coal plant at UAF, just built one a few years back, a new one. Ileson's had one. I've been in Healy, I've been around all this stuff. And coal always gets such a bad rap. Oh, you can't stand to be around it. There's very few people, unless they're paying attention, would even know it's there. I've been at the plant in Healy. I've been at them in Fairbanks. It's not like what people think. It's not like if you got a stove in your house and you drive by. So this coal resource, we should really use it if it works out. I really appreciate that. And another thing, I've heard some discussion about this Valley Mover thing that's coming up and possibly is going to need more borough funds or borough funds to it. Everybody in this borough, when you live here, you decide if you want to live in Trapper Creek or Sutton or wherever it is, and you're going to be further away from a hospital or a doctor, or if you commute to Anchorage to work, but that's your choice. That's your choice where you decide to live. So, I don't see you guys dressed in Santa Claus outfits. Don't start taking money from the taxpayers and say, oh, we got to support this transit thing. If stuff can't support itself and go by its own, don't just say, oh, we'll tax the borough residents some more. So I'm asking you to think about this stuff when you dip into the taxpayer's pocket. Everybody has a choice where they've lived and how they get to work. If the only job they have is in Anchorage and they got to commute, we don't need to provide a bus for them to get there. That's their responsibility. Otherwise, maybe everybody'd live out here, but if that's where their job is, we can't be supporting their transportation for them. So thank you for your time.
Mark, you didn't state your name.
Oh, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you. That's
Mark
okay.
Spone, I'm sorry.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that would like to address the assembly?
Hey, it's Carson Hallam. Just want to, on that 5-board member thing, I think we're talking about the whole lack of members approaching that. I think if we had better advertisement, I know a lot of people out in Willow that would probably be very open to being on these, but no one really knows they're open. I think if we had maybe better outreach, I know I was approached last meeting over some of this, and I think I didn't realize all the openings that there was. So I think if we were just more open about it and more maybe set out the requirements or the what you need, how many meetings they have and all that kind of stuff on Facebook, whatever it might be, probably get a lot more interest. So if we just kind of focused on that, it probably would help kind of fill them up a little bit more. So just opinion.
Okay, thank you. I'll check with the clerk to see if we can post and have it available out there regarding boards and commissions. So anyway, yeah. Anyone else would like to give testimony to the assembly? Okay, well, we have some people online. Okay. Alrighty, go ahead. The first person online, please. Go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, go ahead.
My name is Scott Lupin. I'm going to introduce myself. I moved from Colorado to Alaska and talked to Dima on the phone. I got appointed by the governor of statewide independent living council. I'm going to be nice. I did apply for Park and Recs in Transportation Advisory Board. I heard a lot of people have a hard time to fill in the boards. I think everybody should have acknowledgement or knowledgeable to be equally. Governor Mike says to person with disability, I got on state board 2 months, and I've applied for Park and Recs almost 3 months, and that's not acceptable for resident people. I've been resident over 3 months already, and I got appointed by the state. So can you guys explain why it takes so long to be appointed by county or in the state, knowing it takes too much? So that's I have a background, apartment transportation background, and I'm on federal. Independent Living Council have their own advisory board in the federal side, and I'd like to be on Transportation Advisory Board. And we have an issue with Trans Valley Transit. Their heater is broken, and they can't get that fixed. And a lot of people are getting cold on the bus. So if you guys can, I don't know which direction, and cold energy, cold is amazing. I'm hoping you guys could pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. The next person online, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Go ahead.
Hi. Well, good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the Assembly, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak. My name is Margaret Stern, that's Stern, and I represent the Susitna River Coalition, a locally based grassroots nonprofit representing over 14,000 members of the Susitna Valley. Every day we hear from Mat-Su residents with concerns about projects and funding proposals for developments out in the West Susitna region. And one of the most common concerns we hear is about the use of public funds to subsidize private infrastructure, whether it's roads, bridges, transmission lines, or tax incentives for private companies. The company proposing this carbon capture project that you heard about earlier this evening has already received $11 million in funding, $2.2 million from Alaskans, to study carbon storage in Cook Inlet. And they've made it clear that they won't be storing the carbon. They plan to capture and sell it instead. They have no customers, no power agreements, and no established market for this product. And it's really misleading to suggest that this project offers fixed energy prices, especially when the coal involved will likely be exported. The company has existing relationships with the Korean buyers who historically purchase nearly 50% of Usabeli's coal. It's also important to recognize that this project qualifies for just one of 5 federal grants, so I'll answer one of the questions that was asked by the Assembly person earlier. And one of these 5 federal grants in the $75 to $175 million range. Given the enormous cost of carbon capture technology, I would like to better understand how much that potential award will actually fund the technology itself. Lastly, while there has been no explicit mention of powering mining operations, this plan places energy infrastructure far closer to existing and proposed mining projects than to MEA customers. This also raises pretty serious concerns about who will ultimately benefit from this project and whether it actually aligns with priorities of local rail belt residents. So thank you so much for your time. I really encourage you to ask questions about this project prior to signing on.
Thank you. The next person online, please.
Yeah, hello everyone. Steve Edwards with the Road Board, and I have to comment on the upcoming legislation there. I guess I'm a little surprised that this is going to be introduced. I guess I'm hoping to see if maybe Ron, you would maybe rethink it into a resolution of support for 5-member boards or something like that instead of legislating it. I've been on a 3-member board for the multiple years, well over a decade, and that's as much as many people as we've been able to get to participate. And sometimes we struggle a little bit to make quorum, but we usually do. And I certainly wouldn't want to see it go to a mandated 3-member for quorum, especially now with only 2 of us on there. It would sort of decapitate our board. And then I was concerned that if our board was non-functional, I wouldn't be able to serve on the big board anymore. Sort of sounds like an open question, but I guess I don't understand where this is coming from. I'm happy to work with anyone that wants to join the board. I'd like to hear from as much public as possible. I like outreaches, and if you could change it to a resolution, asking for better outreach or advertising, that would be great. But mandating the 5-member board is going to have these negative consequences that we've heard about tonight. And I feel like if the need comes up in the future for more board members, I'll certainly come out and ask for it. I hope hopefully would get support for doing it at that time. But to mandate it has some very negative consequences. So I hope you'll maybe reconsider introducing that as a legislation and just make it into a encouraging more advertising or something like that would be fine. That's all. I think that's all I have. So thanks for listening.
Thanks, Steve. Anyone else online? Okay, go ahead. The next person online, please.
Yes, Madam Mayor and Assembly. My name is Clark Smith, and I am in the RS-15 RSA board members, and I'm calling about the ordinance 25017, wanting to change the board requirements to a 5-member board. We have a very difficult time maintaining 3 members, and if we see this go to a 5-member board, then it's going to really hamstring all these boards that only have a 3-member quorum. If we go to a 5-member where we need a 3-member quorum, there's not going to be a lot of representation left after that, because it's difficult to get a quorum with only a 3-member board. And if somebody's sick, we can afford to lose one person. And then after that, we don't have a quorum anymore. I don't see the reason for this. There's been no problem in the past, and none that I can think of, that I know of. So we have a ordinance or an amendment to change what doesn't need fixing. If we go to a 3-member or a 5-member board, we're going to lose the representation that the 3-member board gives us right now. We've always had that with the 3-member board, and we'll lose that for sure, because it's so difficult to get people interested in these boards to sign up, and we just have trouble. I'm also a member of the Upper Susitna Community Council, and we have a tough time getting a quorum there. at any one time. So it's not a good amendment. It's not going to work. It's going to be very difficult for the all the boards that have only 3 members on them. And it's not a problem with the 3-member board. It never has been. I don't see the problem now. So that's my thoughts on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. Anyone else online? No? Okay, I'll bring it back into the audience. Anyone that hasn't spoken that would like to address the assembly? Okay, I don't see anybody, so I'll go ahead and close audience participation. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2514, an ordinance reappropriating $90,000 from the Project Management Division fiscal year 2025 operating budget, $7,849.21 from Settlers Bay Road Parking Lot Project, and $4,287.19 from Alcantara Field Number 4 Repair Project, and extending the date of completion for the project funding to June 30th, 2026 for the Public Works Project Management Software Purchase and Setup. With accompanying Resolution 25-9, a resolution amending the budget for the generator for warm storage building, Settlers Bay Road Parking Lot, Alcantara Field Number 4 Repair, approving the scope of work and budget for Public Works Project Management Software Purchase and Setup. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Staff report, sir.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, Member Assembly, Manager Tom Adams, Public Works Director. This legislation will reappropriate unused funding from completed projects and funding from the fiscal year 2025 Project Management Division operating budget and extend the date of completion on the funding. The reappropriated funding will be used to secure a project management software solution that aligns with the borough's goal of adopting a consistent and centralized approach to project delivery.
Questions to staff? Yes, Assemblyperson Sumner, go ahead.
So this is the cost of software management, project management software, essentially?
Through the Mayor, Assemblymember Sumner, yes, this would intend to bring together operating funds and unused project funds into one fund source so that we can purchase project management software.
What's the value proposition to taxpayers? Like, how does this benefit?
How does this benefit taxpayers for a project to have a project management software?
Yes.
Well, I can tell you now, we have over or nearly $300 million worth of constructed value in projects, both roads and facilities. And we're managing that right now with spreadsheets. So, you know, where there's opportunity for error when you have duplicity in information, we try to have one single source. I mean, I have a list of things here that I think has led to us deciding that moving forward in the 21st century and using using software for project management has significant benefit. For instance, redundant data entry, inefficiency in project tracking, difficulty in reporting, you know, all those things when you're using spreadsheets with a program that we have. I think you can imagine the simplicity that software can bring to us and brings that information together. We can consolidate information, you know, centralize project data from one platform, cost tracking, schedule management, you know, submittals. You know, we have a lot of project submittals that come into us from various consultants and contractors. This platform will allow it to be, we can assign licenses to consultants and contractors, and they can use this platform to make those submittals in a workflow that's manageable. Field reporting and photos, you know, we have mobile applications that would also allow this to be used. CAD and file, you know, CAD file viewing, data reporting. I mean, the list goes on as to what the software will allow us to do. If you can imagine some of the, you know, the reporting and the dashboards GIS does, you know, that you can just, you know, see what the power of software can actually provide.
Follow up?
I use project management software for a couple of dozen houses a year, so I can't imagine doing what you guys do without project management software. So thank you.
Appreciate it.
Assemblyperson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Yes, go ahead.
I guess this is more of a comment now because you answered my question. I was going to ask you what kind of project software you use now and how is this going to upgrade it. But to hear that in this day and age that you're using spreadsheets absolutely just blows my mind. Do you have a software that you're looking at right now?
We are through the mayor to Assembly Member Gamble. Yes, we do. We have we've been doing a lot of research into what type of PM software. There's a lot
of different platforms out there. Many of them are just contractor based. We actually found one that's more government project based, and it's called Project Mates. We've been working with our IT division, and it's a lot of integration, not only for our project management standpoint, but also with our financial software. So there's potentially some benefit where invoices could be submitted through this Project Mates and flow through the workflow into our financial software and ultimately lead to invoices being paid in that platform. So short answer is Project Mates.
Thank you, Tom.
Thank you. Further questions of staff? Okay, all right, I guess that's it then, sir. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing for ordinance 25-014 and resolution 25-009. Apparently, we don't have a sign-up sheet. Anyone in the audience that would like to address this ordinance or resolution? Seeing no one, do we have anybody? We don't have anybody online. Okay, one last chance. Okay, I'll close public hearing and assembly, or deputy mayor rather, excuse me.
I move to adopt ordinance 25-014 and resolution 25-009.
Discussion by the assembly. Is there any objection to passing the ordinance and resolution? Hearing none, then the legislation passes. Madam Clerk.
Ordinance 2515, an ordinance authorizing the borough to issue area-wide general obligation bonds not to exceed $117,639,400 in one or more series to finance the cost in whole or in part of A, the acquisition, design, construction, major renovation, and renewal of educational and related capital improvement projects in the Matanuska-Susitna Borough. B, the construction, additions, improvements, betterments, repair, reconstruction, or acquisition of public roads and pathways and facilities related thereto in the Matanuska-Susitna Borough, together with all necessary equipment and transportation facilities, including improving school access, and the acquisition of lands or rights in lands in connection therewith. And C, the refunding of certain outstanding general obligation bonds of the Matanuska-Susitna Borough, fixing certain details of such bonds and authorizing their sale. If you're on the phone and would like to speak to this, press *3.
Okay, Stout, please.
Through the mayor to the assembly, Cheyenne Heindel, finance director. So before you is the actual authorization for me to go out and sell the bonds that were approved in November. Additionally, we're selling a portion of bonds that were approved in the 2021 elections for the transportation package. And finally, we're refunding a number of bonds. So the breakdown of the bonds that we're selling $34,549,400 in school bonds. That will be to cover the full price of Academy Charter, American Charter, and then design of Birch Tree Charter School. We are selling $20,280,000 for the current road package. And then we are refunding, right now the number is about $60 million to make it up to the total $117,639,400. We started with an estimate of $62,810,000 in refunding bonds. Now, those refunding bonds, once we get them refinanced, we're looking at a 8.21% savings over the life of the bonds. That equates to roughly $4,881,000 in actual dollars. And I'll give you our calendar. We are anticipating that these bonds will go to market the middle of March, and we will close and have the money in our accounts by the end of March.
Questions to staff? Okay, seeing none. Thank you, ma'am. So I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing on ordinance 25-015. We do not have a sign-up sheet. Anyone in the audience that would like to testify on this ordinance? Okay, do we have anybody online, sir? We do not. One last chance. Anyone want to testify on this ordinance? Okay, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Deputy Mayor.
I move to adopt ordinance 25-015.
Discussion by the assembly. Is there any objection by the assembly? Hearing no objection, then ordinance 25-015 passes. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2510, a resolution approving the amended scope of work and budget for Lytle Lake Portage at Beaver Lake Road and Birch Creek Tributary. Yes.
We forgot the second.
Oh, yeah, we did. You're right. Thank you.
So we are now to the point of the second audience participation. Doesn't look like we have a sign-up sheet, but if anybody that didn't get a chance to testify at the first one would like to testify, you're welcome to testify at this time. Okay, do we have anybody online? No? So you're right on there, Madam Clerk.
Okay, I'll do this again.
All right.
Resolution 2510, a resolution approving the amended scope of work and budget for Linda Lake Portage at Beaver Lake Road and Birch Creek Tributary at Mastodon Road Fish Passage Project. Resolution 2511, a resolution authorizing the manager to sign and submit grant applications to the National Fish Habitat Partnerships for Kings Lake at Sierra Street and Anderson Lake at Charlie Drive Fish Passage Project, and to the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration for the Wasilla Creek Tributary at Bonnie Drive Fish Passage Culvert Replacement Project. AM 25005, approval of change order number 5 for contract number 22104 PC with Dow LLC to add $355,624 for the Shaw Elementary Turn Lane Project to expand the traffic study and design efforts to include the extension of East Foxtrot Avenue and Birch Tree Charter School projects and extend the contract to June 18, 2027. AM 2512, award of proposal number 25034P to Orion Construction in the contract amount of $825,000 to design, build, and install exhibits at the Gateway Visitor Center.
Deputy Mayor?
I move to approve the consent agenda as read into the record by the clerk.
Yeah. Any objection? Hearing no objection, then the consent agenda has been approved as read, and we do have 2 resolutions that have been pulled. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2512, a resolution reaffirming the borough's commitment to hiring practices to neither discriminate nor favor applicants because of race, religion, color, national origin, physical or mental disability, age, sex, marital status, changes in marital status, pregnancy, or parenthood. It was pulled by Assemblymember McKee.
Assemblymember McKee, will you please move the resolution, and then if you would like to address it.
Move to adopt Resolution 25012.
Okay, and would you like to speak to it?
Yeah, just very briefly, I used to be involved in labor relations consultant agency, and we did a lot of contract language, developing it and defending it. When I look at some of this stuff, I think, oh my gosh, I remember the case where some little chickie who is about 5'2" and weighs 100 pounds or something like that says, "Honey bunch, could you lift this up onto this rack for me because I can't do it, and if I could get up there, then I couldn't get it down." In other words, a lot of people were, and I hate to say it primarily because it was mostly women, and I am that. This bound us many times to defend turning because I had to terminate that person because I couldn't do the job. And I know where it says, as long as it's not in conflict with, and Nick, you would know all about that. Is that language safe enough where it says basically where the positions do not require distinction on the basis of age, physical, mental, or just blah, 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 blah? Is that adequate language?
That's already in code.
I know that.
Tonight is not amending code.
I know that.
This is just reaffirming that the borough will continue its practice of hiring the best qualified people and not discriminating against, the categories set, unless there is a reasonable basis in the job description.
Mm-hmm.
For example, if you had someone who was quadriplegic,
Mhm.
you could probably validly not hire them to be a firefighter.
Yeah.
We also speak of, mental disabilities. You probably would not want your chief legal officer to have a severe mental disability. Maybe your borough manager. Couldn't resist.
I just wanted to say that because
No, and so this is simply reaffirming what's in our code.
why do we need to do that?
We have to ask the sponsor.
Why are we doing that?
Person Fauna.
So this came as of the discussion when fire fires have started in was going in California, and we seen in front of our eyes how certain leadership was incompetent, and there was practices done potentially based on somebody's skin color, or that because they checked certain diversity group. And it was very alarming when somebody's life is on the line, and one of the executive hires in there says, well, maybe that guy shouldn't have been there. It's not my obligation to take that person out of the building that's on fire. That was it should have been alarming to everyone and everybody who would have seen that. And obviously I talked to the fire chief, I talked to the attorney, says, in the Matsu borough, is there any practicing of any kind of DI type of practices where potentially people's lives can be in risk and things like that? And the answer was no. And I was very relieved of that. And I said, is there a resolution considering that these events taking place? And it was kind of starting to be a common practice in certain states and certain areas. I said, can we put a resolution together so that it is firm position of assembly and Matsu borough that it will never be trying to hire somebody based on them checking certain box, but not looking at the ability, the best potential, best man or woman for that job who can do who could perform. And Mr. Attorney drafted this together. I ran it by the fire Ken to see, and he said he fully supports that, and that's what came out of it.
Okay, as long as you could defend us with that language that's in there, and I realize we're not changing the language, but that's pretty boilerplate language, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, I just wanted to bring that up because sometimes when there's not any discussion about something and then some little glitch comes up, they said, well, go back and look at your contract notes, look at your language notes. And so I just want to put on the record the things that I discussed. So 40 years from now, when I'm no longer around, they'll look at that. Just wanted to put that in there, but thank you. I'm okay with that.
Further discussion? Is there any objection to passing Resolution 25-012? Hearing no objection, then Resolution 25-012 has been adopted. Madam Clerk.
Resolution 2513, a resolution supporting the goals and objectives of President Trump's executive order unleashing Alaska's extraordinary resource potential, was pulled by Assemblymember McKee.
Assemblyperson McKee, if you'll move and then discuss.
I move to adopt resolution serial number 25-013 and would like to pass it.
And do you have input that you would like to provide to the Assembly?
Yeah, just a little, and it has a lot to do with what was said about coal tonight. And when I was going through, and I realize we can't change an executive order, but I thought it was curious that one of our biggest resources is coal, but it's not mentioned in here anywhere. They do push liquid natural gas, which we've been working on for like 100 years, and it's not happening at all. The other thing I was kind of concerned about, that we were going to develop these resources to the fullest extent possible. Again, that's that kind of bombastic language that says, no matter what, we're going to dig it up, carry it out, and mess it up, and we don't care. I just want to go on the record as saying, I wish these things were a little tighter so that they didn't kind of scare me, because fullest extent possible means you can, that's pretty broad. I'm not going to belabor it or argue it, but just wanted to be noted. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Further discussion? Assemblyperson Sumner.
Yes, this is my resolution. I sponsored. I'm actually glad you pulled it because I would have pulled it myself if you hadn't. I'm glad we have some discussion about this because I would rather it be passed affirmatively rather than as in the consent agenda. I don't think it's any secret to anyone that the past federal executive administration was outright antagonistic towards states' rights and how we determine how we use our natural resources in this state. And, I was very excited when I saw that the current president, through executive order, said that he's going to, take off the handcuffs and allow Alaska to actually develop its resources responsibly. If you look towards the last page, I'm sure you guys read in the news that U.S. Senator Murkowski, U.S. Senator Dan Sullivan, U.S. Representative Nick Begich, Alaska Governor Mike Dinwiddie all lauded the actions and issued statements. Oh, I don't think the newspaper would care if I issued a statement, but this is the way the Assembly can issue a statement saying that they also laud these actions. I asked the attorney, Mr. Nick Feropoulos, to draft this for me. If it did not include coal, that was an oversight on my part. I should have thought about it and specifically included coal. I mean,
Can we amend it here, Nick?
This is a resolution, you can certainly amend it. I think Assemblymember McKee's comment was, when you read the executive order, it doesn't specifically call out coal. It talks about developing all of Alaska's natural resources, of course, one of which is coal. It does highlight the AK LNG project, but the executive order itself does not call out coal specifically. It vast natural resources, maximize the development and production of the natural resources located on both federal and state land, and expedite the permitting and leasing of energy and natural resource projects in Alaska. So it's written very broadly for everything.
Yeah, if I may, I think that, basically where it specifically addresses LNG, that's verbatim from the executive order. So we can't necessarily amend what Trump said.
Further discussion by the Assembly.
So we can or we can't add, well, we can't add coal because we can't modify an executive order, so there's no way to, well,
Well,
I just wanted it to be heard again, one of those things.
well, I think it's covered,
And bro-
in resources, right?
You're right, but I wondered why they put in liquid natural gas and didn't put in coal. That was just a
I
curious
don't
thing on
know.
my part. Yeah.
Call the president tonight when you get home and ask
I
him.
would do that. I would do that. Thank you kindly.
Assemblyperson Fauna.
Quick question to the sponsor. This was pretty amazing, and I fully support it. But did Trump issued any executive order as equal to any other states? Because it's pretty amazing that there's 50 states, and from at least what I've seen, there's only been, I think our state is outlined in that, which is pretty impressive. I just want to know if there was any other ones that got special treatment like this.
I don't know. Not that I'm aware of, but, I don't pay that much attention to other states, but yeah.
Well, that's very awesome, and I think that means we have a lot of potential. And if the president sees it, then we definitely should be supporting it as well.
Further discussion. Is there any objection to passing Resolution 25-013? Hearing no objection, then the legislation passes. And let's see, we do not have any unfinished business. There's no vetoes. Madam Clerk.
For introduction for public hearing on February 18th, ordinance 2513 and ordinance 2517.
Deputy Mayor.
I move to introduce the legislation as read into the record by the clerk and set the public hearings for February 18th, 2025.
Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing none, the legislation has been introduced. Deputy Mayor, vacancy report.
I move to confirm the mayor's appointments as follows. Agricultural Advisory Board, Anthony West. Anthony West. Transportation Advisory Board, Jesse Peterson. West Lakes Fire FSA number 136, Dennis Vadell. Chase Trail Service Area number 134, Mike Wood.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Is there any objection? Hearing no objection, the vacancy report has been approved. We have no other new business. We have no referrals. There are no reconsiderations, right? You're not writing me a note? Okay.
Saying don't forget Hale.
Oh, yes. Okay. So we are at assembly comments. So thanks to my able secretary here, clerk. I don't know, maybe secretary would be a downgrade. I'm sorry. To my able clerk. Assemblyperson Hale, do you have parting comments?
No comment, Madam Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for being online. Mr. Attorney, parting comments? No? Assemblyperson McKee, parting comments? No? Deputy Mayor, parting comments?
Thank you, Lord, for your never-ending love. Thank you for your mercy and your grace. Please forgive us for our sins. Please bless our veterans, our first responders, our military, and our elderly. Please help the poor, the sick, the broken. Heal the borough, our state, and our nation. Please help us to love one another. In Jesus' name, amen.
Mr. Manager, parting comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just two things quickly. As you know, obviously, they're in session in Juneau. If there's an interest in any assembly member traveling to Juneau, we will set up, depending on how many of you want to go. Right now, I'm soliciting interest for March 5th and 6th. Would likely be a trip down that morning, stay the night, come back that afternoon or evening on the 6th. So if there are interested folks, I see one hand, two hands, let me know, and I will start to set that up so that we can get that lined out, reservations made. So if anyone else has got some interest, let me know. We can go up to 3. And then if there are more than 3, we'll facilitate a second trip and split folks up, but we can only travel at 3 at one time. Okay, so I've got 2 interested parties. And then the second thing is we are in a position to be able to take things like the audit and a clear opinion or a clean opinion for granted. I don't want to do that. Our staff do an amazing job keeping track of our financials, and it's super important to our credibility as an organization. So I just want to give credit to Cheyenne, our comptroller, their staff. They, the auditor said it, I think, really well. A lot of this, the success of this has to do with good preparation, and our staff do a lot of work preparing for that so that you can hang your hat on the fact that the borough has sound financial statements. So I just wanted to acknowledge that and say thank you for the work that they do. That's all, Madam Mayor.
Madam Clerk, parting comments? Assemblyperson Sumner, parting comments?
I just want to thank the staff. Also want to thank John and Jane Q Public. I know that this isn't when you guys come and testify in front of the assembly, there's not an opportunity for us to have banter or back and forth discussion, but I want you all to know that, we do hear your comments and take them under advisement, and they definitely have a major bearing on the way we vote. Thank you.
Assemblyperson Gamble?
No comment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Okay. Assemblyperson Bono? No comments? Okay. I second what the manager said regarding Cheyenne, although she is gone, but I'm sure we will be receiving notification of the awards that they probably have earned again. And so I want to thank you for that. And we have no executive session, and we are going to adjourn at 8:09.
You will now be disconnected.